Alright guys, Hatchcramming again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Roster drama continues last night, just a day after Cloud9 confirmed exactly what they're doing with their roster, i.e. dropping everyone and keeping Simp. The rumour as to what their roster was planning to be for the upcoming season has now changed. Nero, who was seemingly a key target of the team, he is now out of the picture. Another very interesting player is coming in and says, can this possibly be a good idea? Are Cloud9 actually going to be any good just a year or so after winning the World Championship as the New York Subliners? Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Slasher is still expected to join the Carolina Royal Ravens there in Charlotte. Thought this is a pretty fire graphic to be fair. We'll see of course how good that team does, just because it is relevant, this Carolina team, to what we're going to discuss with Cloud9 here over the coming minutes. Firstly, some challengers rosters. They are getting them locked in for the upcoming season. This should be, I mean, right up there as one of the best teams in challengers, not in the league. Exceed, DiamondCon, Fame and Yuli. So, interesting, Yuli, I mean, all of these guys have been in the league at some point or another. DiamondCon and Fame were this most recent season on the Los Angeles Guerrillas, but of course, that organization no longer exists. Yuli was on the London team a couple of years ago. Exceed has had a couple of opportunities as well, and they're going to be back in action for the new season. Mayhem, who coached Exceed last year on FaZe Black, and Vios are both going to be over there. Two of arguably the best coaches in challenges that arguably could have got a spot in the league somewhere or another, right? But unfortunately, with 12 teams, there are only so many spots to go around, and, you know, commendably for these guys still sticking around in challenges, to be honest, because it's not like it's a massively well-supported ecosystem here in Call of Duty. But to be fair, there is prize money to be won. I mean, the prize pool last year in challenges was pretty damn nice, actually, compared to what it maybe has been before. This year, we'll see what they come up with, I suppose. This is interesting as well. I don't exactly know what happened to this whole Bant joining Toronto thing, because he literally did like a skit. I mean, I wouldn't call it a skit exactly, but, you know, did a bit of content with them after the World Cup, kind of implying, oh, I'm back, either as a player, which seems unlikely and still seems unlikely, especially after this, maybe as a coach or something, right? Leading up their academy, I don't know. But no, Bant's is going to play with Harry, Denza, and Mythics. So, similar roster to the Gentlemates team, of course, that attended the World Cup and did pretty well not long ago. Mythics, by the way, he is one of the next up players as far as I'm concerned. His numbers last year were really good, and if some of these coaches and GMs in North America are keeping their eyes open, Mythics is one that you want to get the visa papers ready for as far as I'm concerned. So, and Harry's great as well. I mean, it's a good team, but it'll be interesting to see how this year goes, because unfortunately the likes of Weeman, for example, who has been killing it for the last couple of years, certainly last year in challenges, and was even, you know, on like units and whatever, teams like that back in the day, in like Black Ops 4 and stuff, he was definitely a player that should have been considered for the league as far as I'm concerned, but unfortunately for him, you know, being from Europe, visa problems, just got in the way and it never happened, and now he's just decided to hang up the sticks, because he didn't get a chance last year going into this year, given the way that he performed over the last 12 months, it's never going to happen. Another big confirmation of yesterday, Sender is locked in on the coaching staff for the Los Angeles Thieves. He did talk about it in some detail in a video, so it's pretty interesting stuff, but yeah, Sender leaving the New York Subliners and Cloud9, it will get to them in a second, to come over to Thieves alongside Shane as effectively the JCap replacement is the way that you can look at it here, right? JCap decided to step away from coaching at the end of last season. Sender's, well, obviously going to come along for the ride. Can't be bad, can it? Sender has been given lots of credit as a great coach, certainly from like a mentality POV over the last couple of years. Sender and Shane over there with that roster, I mean, I do think it strengthens their core. It's always difficult to say how valuable a coach really is, how valuable a coaching staff really is, but I do think in Sender's case, there has definitely been a positive outcome for his teams that he's been on over the last few years, and even the likes of Envoy would give him a fair bit of credit for that, right? Because Envoy was actually with Sender on the Chicago Huntsman, or actually was OpTic Chicago, technically, wasn't it? A couple of years ago when Envoy was on that roster. Well, actually, I think it applies to both, because I think Sender was also coaching for them on the Chicago Huntsman as well, and in the following year. So anyway, Envoy will give him the vouch because he was, you know, been with Sender in the early part of his coaching career, and now Sender is, you'd think, a far more accomplished, well, literally he is, but also probably just a better coach than he was a few years ago, and now he's coming back to coach Envoy again on this team. So I feel like if there was ever a recipe for success, given what OpTic have and what FaZe have, Thieves have pretty much put it together. Whether it works, another question, but it should. I mean, everything that Thieves have done is the correct decision, I would say, pretty much. And, well, we'll see if it actually works out in their favour because, you know, they have built the team to take down OpTic and FaZe. And I think they'll be able to do that on a large number of occasions this season. Whether they can do that when it matters at the big one and get Scrappy as ring and, you know, Nature another ring, I guess, with Los Angeles Thieves winning a couple of years ago in 2022. If they could win in 2025, that would be a serious achievement. And also for Sender, it's worthy of note, I don't know if a coach has ever won 2 world championships as a coach. Team, you know, players have won, let's say Crowder was a world champion as a player, and then he became a coach and won the world championship again as a coach with FaZe. I don't think any coach has done it twice as a coach, as it were. So Sender would be, you know, one to try and do that, especially on 2 different teams, winning with the Subliners, and now potentially trying to win with the Los Angeles Thieves, with HyDra potentially on his team on both occasions. But let's talk about Cloud9, because this is one of the more interesting rosters, especially speaking of Sender, right? Because he was just on that New York team. Now he's gone. They blew it up. They dropped basically everyone. ReeaL is gone. We think maybe to Gentlemate alongside Skyz and Kiz. HyDra's gone to Thieves. You know, everything's disappearing from the team. The only man they kept was Sib. And the big rumor was a few days ago that Sib was looking for Attach as his AR duo, possibly Accuracy as the main AR, well, former main AR, I guess, but as the coach of the team alongside that AR duo, which just makes way too much sense in my mind not to be happening. And then you've got your SMGs. This was the question though for me on the SMG duo on this team, because Sib Attach, you know, I like it. I mean, for sure. Sib, Sasha, Sib Attach, even Sib Clay, maybe not. I don't know. Just, I'm not sure how well those 2 guys will get on. But in that kind of ballpark, those are the ARs to consider. And the Sib Attach Accuracy head coach combo just makes way too much sense not to go for. The SMGs is the question just because there's not infinite SMG talent floating around the league. But I did think that of the options they had, they'd chosen reasonably wisely. Kremp and Nero will be, undoubtedly in my eyes, a very up and down SMG duo. Some days they'll be on, some days they won't be. Some days they'll be absolutely frying and the team will be, getting big upset wins against some of the best of the best. And other days they're throwing scenarios left, right and centre. And that is a risk when you sign a team like this, but equally when you have a roster which isn't, theoretically on paper best in terms of talent, you do, in my opinion, want to lean towards the upside, because if you catch fire for a weekend, you could potentially win. If you don't have the talent but more consistency, then maybe your ceiling is top 4, top 3 potentially, right? Even on a phenomenal weekend. But now this story has changed. As JKL says yesterday, in recent days, Nero is now no longer expected to be on Cloud9 New York. And Ronnie makes it, who hasn't missed this offseason so far, so we've got to take this with, some pretty decent high level of validity, to be honest, because he's been killing it this offseason, has said it more emphatically. They've decided they no longer want to sign Nero. So Nero is the man that they're looking for to potentially be out of the team. I will say, I don't know if this is like photoshopped. It's probably not, because you can't see likes on Twitter anymore. But I know this was going around the Zoo Mafia community, that this guy posted disagree about Nero. He's a low IQ player. That's why he always struggles to find teams. Also, I think his best position is probably as a flex. I think this is talking about Nero anyway, and then Dante Sib likes this tweet. So anyway, there's something going on there. And to me, the more likely option is that Accuracy, if he is coming in as the head coach GM of this team, has actually said, there's someone else we should be signing here. And, well, we'll see who that is in a second. Donny Temp gives his thoughts and says, look, Hook's a legend. Hook, well, we'll talk about where he might go in a second. Nero's good as well, with some experience. But apparently it's going to be Mack, who's no longer joining the Ravens alongside Slasher, TJ and Gwyn, but is instead joining Cloud9. Very interesting, because if you'd have told me Cloud9 were not signing Nero and were therefore looking to sign a Ravens player, I'd have said, oh, they're going to spend some of the HyDra buyout money to get Gwyn. and that might make sense. But either they never thought to do that, or they, you know, Cloud9 or let's say Raven's not going to take any buyout money for Gwyn ever, then you're looking effectively at Mack, which is a very, very similar team to the old school New York Subliners roster when Mack and Attach were together on that team, with Clayster as it was, of course, back then. So it's pretty similar to that. But also, if Accuracy is, as he's rumoured to be, the head coach of this roster, he's played with Mack and knows how impactful he can be for a team. But yeah, Mack coming in as an SMG. Again, I personally think that Mack is maybe also better suited to being on a flex role as far as I'm concerned. And also there is questions on the fact that this beta was pretty damn fast paced, right? Like, this game is fast. And players like Nero, especially, you would think, given his upside, would be not exactly guaranteed to be consistently excellent, but a player with lots of potential on this type of title. That would be my read, and as Zinni says, like, they must not have played the same beta I did, because that raises some questions. Now, Mack is good, for sure, but bringing him back after a year away, not competing, instead of Nero, is an interesting, questionable, and probably rather controversial decision. These were Nero's cards last year, and his search and destroy isn't good. I think that is one of the factors that does hold him back on some level. But his respawn is, no doubt. Yes, at the World Cup he had a pretty bad run in hardpoint, but you know, his impact in terms of kills per 10 minutes and stuff, and even at, you know, Major 2 he had the highest hardpoint KD for his role in the entire league. Hill time per 10 was purple as well, and the numbers are typically very good for an SMG player like Nero, especially on a team like Vegas, who's playing at a very fast-paced way with lots of engagements per 10, lots of kills per 10 minutes. So, you know, to me, Nero is the player that I would probably have looked to keep. Like, personally, Nero or Kremp, if I'm asked to bring in Mack over one of those two, I might have Nero and Mack together, although I'm still not sure I massively like it. And there's no doubt that Kremp does have a high ceiling as well, but, you know, I've talked about this for a little while, really, that if there's one SMG that I'd be looking to sign around the league with maybe the highest upside that isn't on a top 4 team, Nero might have been that guy. And even I think a team like Thieves, if they couldn't get what they were looking for this offseason, which they did, Nero could have been one to consider. So for Cloud9 to effectively pass up on Nero, having seemingly got him secured, and saying, no, we're going to get Mack in instead, is a pretty big decision. But look, Mack's been up and down in his career too, was very good, to be honest, on that New York Subliners team we're talking about. But then as his career went on, last year, of course, he stepped away for a year. His numbers were pretty terrible on that Surge team, but he was teaming with Pred, so, and was enabling that on some degree at least. And clearly, if Accuracy is the head coach here, he must think so as well. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comments below. This is the feature on the Minnesota Rocket apparently as well. Geo and Estrel are locked in. Hook is not yet locked in, but expected. Their fourth player, we talked about ARs, Arcetees, Clayster, among others. But apparently no, Paulx is getting the shout. So Paulx returned to the league alongside these guys. Interesting. Not the player that I would necessarily have expected in this position. Clay, I imagine, can't be especially happy about it if this comes true. But, you know, very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments, because we talked about Arcetees and Paulx or whatever, but it seems like Looney and the team over there at Rocker, they do rate Paulx highly and they want him into this team. So what do we think about that? Paulx, Geo, Estrel and Hook. It's an interesting roster, not a roster that I've expected Minnesota Rockets to necessarily field going into next season, but that is currently their target. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff then in the comment section below as ever. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
2017, when I had my first exit, or when I first sold OpTic, every time I think out loud, I ask myself, do you regret it? Every single fucking time. Because of that sale, I'm like, holy fuck, I have to reinvest all of this, or I have to make this be more of that. So I took a lot of that and launched the Hex Quarters, so still reinvested in the content. No money was made on the Hex Quarters because I couldn't get any sponsors, and I couldn't get any sponsors because I would still be fighting for sponsors against OpTic, and I couldn't do that. So no sponsors came in. I had my own couple of deals here and there, but the Hex Quarters definitely was a loss. But it built something, right? And it helped something. So it's hard to look at it that way, man. If I'm being honest, I don't. Luckily, I've been blessed enough to make the right moves at the right times to not have to make money the main reason as to why I'm doing something. Because sometimes the cool of it is going to lead to money in the future. And even talking about money like that, like it dirties the artwork. And I fucking hate that shit, which is why I fucking try to keep it out.